Good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another live look behind the scenes here at the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. What do we call it? Behind the mic? Mike? Mike Avery. Behind the mic. So it's Mike behind the mic. And as always, glad to have you along with us as we kick off our Wednesday morning. Kind of wish I was on the water this morning, but hey, I got to work once in a while, right? Good morning, Craig. How are you? Have you been on the water, Craig? I've been out fishing. I've been doing fairly well. Got my mojo back. Good morning, Brian. Nice to have you along with us. Hello, Julie. Good morning to you. Bruce, nice to have you along with us as well as we check in from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine. No sound? No sound? Does anybody else have no sound? Anybody? Anybody else have? Yeah, everybody else must have sound. So our one guy, you got sound. Okay, audio's fine. So whoever doesn't have sound, maybe you should turn your device up. Bill Hoffman says he's been without power now for 2 days, but he's a prepper. Doesn't matter to him. Tim says this sound is perfect. All good. Okay. All right. So whoever doesn't have sound, turn your phone up, turn your laptop up, turn your iPad up. Jim checking in from Selby. Me and my dad have a smaller boat. We caught a few west of the Channel Island. Nice. Good morning, Jason checking in from the Ira Township Fire Department. Jason, it wouldn't be a Wednesday morning live without you. My name is, there we go. Okay. Good morning, Jim. Yeah, the weather's been kind of screwy, huh? A lot of rain, a lot of storms up in my neck of the woods. It hasn't stormed quite so bad. Although I did find myself Saturday out on Saginaw Bay in a pretty good downpour. But I think that's what made the fishing pretty good on that day. And I do have my mojo back, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Oh, I had somebody send, in fact, it was Tony Wynn, sent me this here to the studio, SGW. This is something that is 30 years old, 31 years old. This is from 1990. The News 5 Saginaw Bay. Good morning, Mad Jack. Oh, my goodness. Johnny Bowler cut it short. He's on his way to his grandma's funeral. She made it to 100 years. 355 days. God bless her soul, Johnny. Wow. You've had a rough year, my friend. Your family's had a rough year, my friend. My thoughts and prayers are with you, and hopefully things are on the upside now. David, good morning. Harold, good morning. 4.5 inches on the east slope of Mount Morris. Jim says, will I be at the Woods and Water show in September? You bet I will. I'll be there Friday, and then Saturday of that same weekend, the first weekend after Labor Day, is Jay's 50th anniversary. I'll be up there. Good morning, Richard. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Otto. Dave Mason's with us. Not the Dave Mason that we know from the radio, music, years ago, but Dave Mason. Dave and I share a common heritage in that our dads were both law enforcement officers. How cool. What a thing that is to be proud of. At least I'm proud of it, and I know Dave is as well. This is so cool. I got to tell you. News 5 Outdoors, Saginaw Bay Walleye Circuit. I'll talk more about this tonight, but It's so old, it's got Loran C numbers on it instead of GPS numbers. Good morning, Michelle. How are you? Keep an eye on that husband of yours. I know he's a handful. There's Tony. Tony, I can't thank you enough for sending me this. Tony, I appreciate this so much. This is a blast from the past. And Tony Wint is the guy who sent this to me. Really, really cool. This is when I had a News 5 Outdoors Saginaw Bay Walleye Circuit. Good morning, Sam. How are things at Jay's? Sam, I've got Kevin Pritchard of Jay's on the show today. The radio show. Phil checking in from Steamy, Missouri. This is so cool, Tony. This is something I did to promote the Saginaw Bay walleye fishery in the early days. It was just getting started. We didn't really know how to catch the fish. We didn't know how to find the fish. I mean, this brings back some memories. Thank you, Tony. I'll go over this in depth and talk more about this. Jason checking in from the Ford Dearborn truck plant. Wouldn't be a Wednesday morning without you either, Jason. Bruce checking in from Roscommon. Hey, next Tuesday here in Michigan, we find out about whether we got our bear or elk tags. Lori says she'll be at the Woods and Water Show, Jay's and Burt Lake for the Michigan Walleye Tournament. Are you talking that first weekend in September or first weekend after Labor Day, Lori? That'll be a busy weekend for you as well. Phil says, am I trying to say I'm old? I don't deny it, Phil. I'm old. I don't deny it in the least. You're like, bah. Well, I am. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Jerry. Hey, the fishing's been pretty good on Saginaw Bay. I got my mojo back. I'm happy about that. This is the 4th of July weekend coming up. Can you believe it? Craig, this is interesting. A little sad to see all the devastation to the trees up north along I-75. What happened, Craig? Did a big storm come through there and knock them down? I'm not aware of that. Jim checking in from Tennessee. Lori, how do you know you got your elk tag? You either cheated and got an inside look inside the DNR's computer system, or you must be talking about an out-of-state thing. Corey says, any tips for finding walleye in a river like the St. Mary's? Oh, gypsy moth. Corey, no, I can't help you there. Gypsy moth. Lori got hers for Colorado. Gypsy moths. Okay. Yeah, that is a shame. Good morning, Rick. Nice to have you along with us as well. Gypsy moths are bad this year, Dave says. Bugs are eating the leaves off the poplar trees. So what else is in the news? Ontario extended the deadline or extended the closure on their border for at least another month. Good morning, Ed Bolanowski of Speedy Blaze, speedyblaze.com. We're not giving away Speedy Blaze tonight on Wednesday Night Live, but we're going to give away some freaking pickles. That's tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern. So Ontario extended the border closure. We're not going to be bear hunting this year. You've heard about this by now, but this is new since we last talked. The Arizona Fish and Game Commission has put a ban on trail cameras because they say it's, what do they say? It's basically unfair. What a joke. But at least that was the Fish and Game Commission, unlike here in Michigan, a fair chase. They said it violated fair chase. Kalamazoo County commissioners voted to oppose hunting contests. Well, Kalamazoo County commissioners have no say in voting on such a thing. It's not under their purview. So they're stepping way outside of their lane. Good morning, Dave. Dave says he's thinking about going on a debate today for the first time. Any hints? Yes, Dave, go to the sailboat buoys. Go to the sailboat buoys On the south side of the buoys and the west side of the buoys, run number 7 flicker shads. Run them 80 to 50 back. Find the boats. Stay out of the boats. Troll about 2.5 miles an hour. Bernie says more and more bear sightings in central and lower Michigan. Very true. Kalamazoo County commissioners, what are they thinking? And I had a comment from somebody here last week saying, hey, why don't you ever talk about the outdoors in Branch County? Shane, I'm not sure which video you're talking about, buddy. Remind me, please. A couple of reasons for that. Number one, I don't think I've ever done anything outdoors in Branch County. I have no experience there. So I tend to talk about places where I have experience and know a little something, where I've done something or know people in those areas. But the other thing is, if there's something going on in part of the state that you'd like to see me talk about, let me know about it. For example, on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, which is why I'm here in the studio, any talk at the state level about increasing bear tag numbers? Corey, the answer is no. And one of the reasons is the Michigan Bear Hunters Association is not in favor of it. They have the ear of the DNR. They've lobbied the DNR, and they don't want to see the numbers go up, so the numbers aren't going to go up. And I support the Michigan Bear Hunters Association. I don't necessarily agree with that part of what they're saying, but they're a great group. Going back to, you need to let me know if there's something you want me to talk about. Eric Lenz of the Lake St. Clair Walleye Association is my first guest this week, and he reached out to me and said, hey, I'd love to talk to you. So he's on the show this week. So that's an option. Let me know if there's something going on in your part of the state that you think is newsworthy or of interest, and we can try to follow up on it. About the deer beating up the hawk. No, Shane, I have not seen that. Please send me another message or something. Let me know where it's at. No, I don't remember seeing that. Drew Youngdyke wraps up the first hour of this week's show. Then in hour number 2, Dave Engel of Best Chance Charters talks about fishing on Southern Lake Michigan this year. DNR way behind on mailing out turkey patches and Master Angler Awards. Nick Green from MUCC checks in. This week's Ask Avery segment, we're talking about radio affiliates and also topics. The radio affiliates, WMLQ out of Manistee, somebody said, I'm just getting static over there. They're not playing your show. Why is that? So I checked with the folks in Manistee, and they're having transmitter problems. It's not that they don't want to air my show. It's like they want to be on the air, and their signal right now is so weak. If you get outside of the city of Manistee, you just can't hear it. So that's what's going on there. Kevin Pritchard from J Sporting Goods in Clare, he's the archery department manager there, talks about getting ready for archery season. You sent it to me on here. All right, Shane, I'll look for it. You know, and that's part of the problem these days. There's so many different sources coming at us. Like I've got email, I've got texts, I've got Facebook, I've got YouTube, I got Twitter, I got Instagram, and all of these, of course, have messaging features. So I get things coming at me from so many, and then you've got Facebook Business Suite. I've got thank you, Tim. I've got so many different messages coming at me from so many different directions that sometimes it's hard to keep them all sorted out. Especially, as somebody pointed out a couple of minutes ago, for an old brain like mine. Is the water on the bay getting better with Ed? The water looks good. Steve says, first time listening to your radio show live this weekend, driving back from fishing camp. You usually do the podcast. Well, thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. Shane says he understands, and I appreciate that, Shane. Test him, Pat. Going to do a little test here. This is not a test of the emergency broadcast system. This is a test here from the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Here is my podcast or my social media microphone, and here is my broadcast microphone. And we're doing a test of this audio for Pat Johnson, who is here in the studio with me. Charlie Root is actually doing the show this week. Pat Johnston will be doing the Beyond the Blind podcast after we record the radio show. So Kevin Pritchard kicks off hour number 3 of this week's show. And then Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave Miner will wrap it up. And then, as I say, we're recording a Beyond the Blind podcast with Chris Bishop. Chris is a hunting guide out of Pike County, Illinois. The Golden Triangle. That should be an interesting podcast. Other topics of interest. I want to get Captain John Littlefield here on the radio show and podcast and everything else. John is actually the guy who taught my charter captain's class, but he's also captain himself, obviously. He's working with AnglerQuest these days, and he's up on Lake Superior right now with his AnglerQuest. And people say, can the AnglerQuest... Brian says, keep it simple, Mike, or it will get overwhelming and feel like work. Good morning, Randy. How are you? Randy, who caught a limit of fish yesterday morning by 10:30. Lori says she got the email from Bill with the pictures. He's really good about that deer porn, Lori. He gets his hunters all excited. Craig says he's hunted Pike County, Illinois. I have as well, Craig. It's been a few years, though. Ed, going back to your question, is the water in the bay getting better? Yes, the skinny water right now looks like absolute chocolate milk. But even out in the sailboat buoys, there's a good color to it now. Yeah, it's and people are getting fish, so it's good. It's all good right now. Couple of interesting fishing stories. And we've been dodging the storms, that's for sure. Good morning, Kevin. How are you? How is the quest to kill coyotes from the coyote killing king, Kevin Rout? 3 minutes, 4 minutes, Pat? 4 minutes. 4 minutes, okay. I took a group out Saturday. Martin Schindel and his buddies. And this was a fundraising trip. And they were the high bidders, and they were very generous. And the weather was going to be squirrely, but I really wanted to get the guys out that day. Let me check something here very close because I want to give them full credit here. The names of the guys who went with me: Martin Schindel and Justin. And Joe, but I want to get their last names. Of course, Justin Crawford and Joe Armanovich, and Martin's son, Hunter. It was a really rotten day, but I really wanted to get the guys on the water. So I figured we can just swing out and we can fish the skinny water, keep an eye on the sky, and it was absolutely pouring, but the fishing was great. Justin Crawford. I'm going to write these down for the radio show. Joe Ormanovich. We had a couple of interesting situations. Got another one yesterday in the daylight in the bean fields. That's from Kevin. We had a board break off, one of the offshore OR-12s, and the fish was still on it. So we got to hand line that fish in. That was kind of fun. Nice fish, too. And then I was fishing with Scott Gatza last week, and we hooked something, and it was like it put up a nice fight. How was my birthday? My birthday was great, Brian. Thank you. Let me know if you want to try to get Sherman. I'd love to do that, Ed. In fact, I'd love to bend Sherm's ear about a few things if you know what I'm talking about. Same old, same old. Scott hooked into something, and it fought really hard, and we couldn't figure out. I mean, it didn't fight like a sheephead. It fought like a walleye, but it fought like a big walleye. Turns out we had hooked somebody else's lead core, and on the end of that lead core was a fish as well. So we caught somebody else's fish. We put it in our live well, but we caught somebody else's fish. Any plans, my friend, for the 4th of July weekend? Lori says you have to be home long enough. You have to be home long enough. You have to be home long enough. To what? Lori says Saturday was crazy with the rain and the storm. Yeah, it was. It was a downpour. I was fishing my skinny water. There was a point where it was so foggy and raining so hard. I was between the island and the shore, and I couldn't see the island and I couldn't see shore. But I think that's what had the fish aggressive. There was one point I had my boards 15 feet out to the sides. Have to be long enough to get Ed to go fishing. Gotcha. And I was running old school Hottentots 25 and 30 feet down, or 25 and 30 feet behind the board. So they were shallow and had doubles. That's how aggressive the fish were. Ben is going fishing with Captain Mark P on the 4th, Mark Pananzek. I'm assuming that's who it is. Ben, Mark Pananzek, he'll get you fish. How is he said he went through a heart thing too, but he's feeling better now. You're going camping with the family. The weather sounds great. Excellent. 30 seconds, huh? Didn't mean to shout into the microphone. Sorry. All right, in 30 seconds, now about 25 seconds, I'm going to start the first segment of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. You are more than welcome to stick around. Catfish barb removed from his hand. It went in 2 inches, then broke off. Oh, my goodness. That hurts. That sounds like it would hurt. I put a hook in my thumb the other day past the barb. Just grabbed it and pulled it out because I knew if I didn't, it was going to be a problem. Was that a false start, Charlie? Minute? Okay.
Sorry.
So we'll start the show a minute late. It'll make no difference to you folks or our affiliates. It just slows us down somewhat here in the studio. Not a big deal at all. Tonight at 7 o'clock, here on the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, also LinkedIn and Twitter, we'll do another Wednesday Night Live. We'll give away some freaking pickles tonight. Yes, for Captain Mark Pananzek. Okay. Some freaking pickles on the show. We'll talk more about this. Charlie, Tony Wint sent me this. It's from 1990. It's from the old News 5 Outdoors Saginaw Bay Walleye Circuit we put together to promote what at the time was a fledgling Saginaw Bay walleye fishery. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Talk about a blast from the past. Is that for real? All right, that one's real. We're going to start the show now. You're more than welcome to stick around and watch as I record the first segment of this week's show. I won't be able to directly interact as we have been now, but I'll be talking to the radio audience. But feel free to stick around if you want. If not, I would encourage you to join me tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of a Wednesday Night Live where we will give away some freaking pickles. In the meantime, my friends, have a great day. Now, here's Mike Avery. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. My name is Mike Avery, also known as, a.k.a. the Big Guy. And even though I've lost a bunch of weight, I'll always be a big guy, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. And I will always be a guy, I think, who loves the outdoors, who loves the state of Michigan, who loves to promote outdoor activities, who loves to get involved in outdoor activities, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping as much as I can, whenever I can. It's in my DNA. It's in my family history. I've been blessed to make it part of my job, and I look forward to sitting at this microphone every week to share this passion with you, to share information with you, to share interesting people with you. And I appreciate you being along with me this week on the 4th of July weekend. How did that happen? It was just Memorial Day. How did that happen? And before we know it, it'll be Labor Day. And before we know it, summer will be over. Now, I don't want to wish the summertime away, but I do find myself thinking forward to the fall and looking forward to the fall hunting season. But listen, it's kind of the unofficial middle of summer now. Have you been able to do the things that you want? Have you been able to get the things done that you had dreamed about all winter long and been planning in the back of your mind for months? That fishing trip, that camping trip, that charter trip, that drive up north, that getaway weekend. Have you had a chance to do it? Have you made the chance to do it? It's not going to happen unless you make it happen. It's not going to happen unless you take that break from work, unless you get away from the office, unless you get away from the shop, unless you make it a priority. It's very easy, even for me, and this is my job, it's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day things that have to be done, the day-to-day minutia, the important things, the not so important things, but the things that make up our daily lives. And before you know it, you have missed an opportunity for an outdoor adventure, an outdoor experience, an outdoor memory with you or your family, you and your family. We got to make it happen. Got to make it happen. I am anxiously awaiting for the results of the Michigan bear and elk permits. We will know on Tuesday. I'll be going to the DNR website at like 12:01 a.m. Tuesday morning, honestly, to check the results, the drawing results. We'll see. We'll see. And that's another one of those things, right? You can't get a permit if you didn't apply. We have to be a little bit proactive to enjoy the results. I have been, though, on the water a lot lately. You know, I look at this, and I'll be honest with you, this time of year, some of my, I should admit this on the air, some of my work-related activities sometimes suffer a little bit this time of year. Because I figure I've got about a 6-week period, maybe 2 months, to really take advantage of what I love to do in the summertime, and that's walleye fishing. You know, so I sometimes let things, I sometimes put things on the back burner so I can get out on the water. And I have been out on the water quite a bit lately, and I've got my deeper water, walleye mojo back, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Been catching a good number of fish, having some wonderful trips on Saginaw Bay aboard the Angler Quest. And as I walked in the studio here this morning, you can't see this, but I'm holding, what would you call this, Charlie? A newsletter, a newspaper? Yeah. Charlie says, yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of help. Yeah. It's called the News 5 Outdoors Saginaw Bay Walleye Circuit Fishing Guide. This is from 1990. Tony Wintz sent this to me. Tony, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. This is something that we put together, again, in 1990. This was to promote what at the time was a fledgling Saginaw Bay walleye fishery. And there were a series of walleye fishing tournaments around the bay. And what I was able to do, using my position at TV5 and my venue at the time called News 5 Outdoors, to combine these tournaments into a circuit called the News 5 Outdoors Saginaw Bay Walleye Circuit. And this is the newsletter, the fishing guide that was handed out there. Our list of tournaments were Freeland and Midland, then Linwood, then Sebling, then Caseville, then Augrey. And then in August, we had a championship out of Bay City. You open it up, there's a fishing map. This thing is so old, there is a list of useful Loran C numbers. Oh, my goodness. These days we use GPS. But it's, Tony, I can't thank you enough for this. And I'm going to go over this in depth, in detail. But it's really cool to take a look at that resource from the early days and what it is now. I've had some great trips out there. Martin Schindel, his son Hunter, Justin Crawford, and Joe Armanovich went out with me last weekend. They were high bidders in a charity auction we had to benefit my not mine, my church's parochial school, Trinity Monitor Lutheran Church and School. The guys were very generous. I really wanted to get them on the water, even though we knew the weather was going to be iffy. But I thought, you know what? My skinny water is starting to turn on. I can just duck out there. We can keep an eye on the weather, and we can come back in if we have to. And I think it was because the weather was so rotten that the fishing was so good. You know, they say, well, fish don't know it's raining. Yeah, but fish know about, I think, barometric pressure. They know about, I don't know what fish know about. But the weather was bad and the fishing was good. A couple of interesting things. At one point, we broke off a planer board. Had to hand line it in with a fish on the other end of that. Speaking of things like that, I was out fishing with my buddy Scott Gatza a few days before that. Scott hooked into something that was, it didn't fight like a big sheephead. It fought like a big walleye, but it fought too much for a big walleye. Reeling this thing, and finally get it in and realize he's caught somebody else's lead core. Well, darn. Until we find out at the end of that lead core, there's somebody else's fish. And it was a fresh fish. It wasn't like it was something been dragging out there for days. It looked like somebody hooked it that morning, broke their lead core off, and then we hooked it a couple hours later. So there have been some kind of fun experiences out there. So that, listen, I tell you these things because I have been having so much fun out there on the water this summer that I want to encourage you to get out on the water, in the woods, on the range, the 3D course, the food plots, or whatever. Make it happen. This is the time of year. If you don't do it now, come this winter, you're going to look back on it and say, doggone it, why didn't we do that? COVID shut us down last year. Let's take advantage of what's out there this year. Speaking of COVID, Ontario has extended their border closure for another month. I think that effectively shuts down their bear season. Speaking of things out of state, did you see the Arizona Fish and Game Commission, or whatever it's called out there, has banned trail cameras? They say it violates fair hunting practices. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. That gets some people's attention, right? I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. I don't know. I hate to see it happen. But at least in that case, that was the Arizona Fish and Game Commission, the people who are supposed to make decisions on that. Compare that with these. I almost said something that might get me in trouble by calling the Kalamazoo County Commissioners clowns. Oops, it snuck out. What are they thinking when they vote to oppose hunting contests? Under what jurisdiction, under what purview, under what responsibility do they think they have to make a decision like that? Now, it has no legal authority, at least not at this point. But when we have a county commission voting to oppose hunting contests, what kind of a message does that send? And why? Why are they even worried about it? What business is it of theirs? It's those types of things that make me nervous. The Arizona Fish and Game Commission banning trail cameras. Yes, that is a concern that makes me nervous, but at least they have the authority and they're supposed to deal with such issues. The Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners, stick with your taxes, stick with your roads, stick with your infrastructure, stick with funding your sheriff's department, stick with funding your jail. Don't worry about hunting contests. It's not your job, not your responsibility, not your business. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show, after the break, Eric Lenz of the Lake St. Clair Walleye Association joins me. Then Drew Youngdyke of the National Wildlife Federation wraps up the first hour. In hour number 2, I hope we can get a signal out of Lake Michigan for Captain Dave Engel of Best Chance 2 Charters, Nick Green from MUCC. And in hour number 3, we're getting ready for archery season with Kevin Pritchard of Jay's Sporting Goods, and we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. That's this week on Outdoor Magazine. Well, I had not intended to call them clowns, but then I made the conscious decision to follow up with it. So I will stand by those comments, regardless of what happens. Chad says he was out yesterday morning. The bite was definitely on. Chad, I need to, good morning, Chad, by the way. I need to learn from you, my friend, because we got fish yesterday, and we got good fish, and we got nice fish, and it was a wonderful morning. But we didn't, I'm sure we didn't catch the number of fish that you did. So I need to pick your brain. All right, my friends, have a good day. Tonight, 7 o'clock, Wednesday Night Live, we're going to give away some freaking pickles. We're going to talk more about this. I think this is so cool. And again, thank you, Tony. Come on. For sending me this, the News 5 Outdoors Saginaw Bay Walleye Circuit Fishing Guide from 1990. You know, if I've been fishing walleye out there since 1990, you think I'd be better at it by now, wouldn't you? All right, my friends, have a great day. I hope you can join me tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live right here on Mike Avery Outdoors.